National Institution. The tributes have been pouring in. We're going to light up buildings in blue later on as well. We have stopped just short, by the way, of a state-mandated clapathon in the streets this evening and allowing all children or forcing them at gunpoint to chant about the NHS at the start of their school day. But do we need to stop looking at our health service through rose-tinted glasses, putting everyone that works for it on a pedestal, or actually are they all heroes? Joining me now is TV personality Steve Miller. Steve, thank you very much. Do you think that everyone who works for our NHS is an angel?
Well, I think there are some people in the NHS, in fact, many people in the NHS who do great work and they are angels. Let's park those to the side a minute, because also I believe there are many that work in the NHS that are rude, that are obnoxious, that are lazy and are incompetent. And actually, I think you'd find that the general public tend to agree with me. And, like I say, there are many that do great work, so let's not forget that. However, there are different categories of staff that aren't angels. You have, for example, that sometimes the doctor's receptionist that's like a terrier with lockjaw, that's kind of fighting you on the phone because you want an appointment with the GP. You've got nurses. Many do a great job. Many are angels. Many are not. And I'll tell you why, because I've witnessed it. I've witnessed those nurses that are on that nurses station on their phone doing the gossip. Yeah. So many nurses are not angels. Many need to go on an empathy deepening course. I tell you, the staff group that do a great job, though, Patrick, most of them anyway, the vast majority from my experience, are the health care assistants and the carers that are out there.
Yeah.
Those people are the grafters. Let's not forget that. And can I tell you this, right?
Yeah.
I never forget seeing a dietitian. I was just meeting with a dietitian who actually, quite frankly, was as wide as the room I'm in now, and actually was so quite hostile towards me, I actually thought at one point she was going to eat me herself.
Good grief. I mean, yes, to be fair, that does bring back memories of me when a doctor whose gut was hanging over the table was telling me that my cholesterol was too high. But to be fair, he was right. I just thought maybe he was the wrong person to be saying that to me. But look, the NHS staff save lives. 1 million people a day apparently get NHS treatment. And the thing for me is, Steve, I think every single family, pretty much, has probably got one great NHS story and one absolute horror show. And the two kind of cancel each other out a little bit, don't they? How do you respond to people then when they say, they're all angels and, we all need to go out and clap them, and that we've got this religious service today where our Prime Minister and quite possibly the person who's about to be our Prime Minister are reading from the Bible about our NHS?
I find it nauseating, and I'll tell you why, because actually the NHS is completely broken. It's the right mess, isn't it? Look at the waiting list. Why are we actually celebrating it? And also, I hear this all the time where people say, it's the envy of the world. No, it's not. No one around the world adopts it, as far as I know. So actually, the answer is no. But I actually think there's another thing. The performance management of people in the NHS is very lenient, very lenient. It's very rare you hear of people being sacked in the NHS. Compare that to the private sector. You've got two big different worlds. And I'm going to tell you something now that you probably don't know. I worked in the NHS for 5 years. And I'll tell you what, I was a pen pusher. I wouldn't have paid me in washers.
Right, fair enough. I think you've exposed something else there, though, which is a really big bugbear of mine. We do pay enough for our NHS. Now, it's a question of, is that money then distributed well enough, in my view? The answer to that clearly is no. You cannot have a workforce that is, by and large, pretty much all unhappy with their pay. I think the consultants can do one, by the way, because their average salary is something like 100 grand, and they're talking about going on strike. I'm sorry, but,
I want to say something on that. I want to say something on that because I feel very strongly. Is when those people are going on strike and denying our public the treatment they desperately need, on those days, they can work in the private sector and earn a lot of money. That is a disgrace, an absolute national disgrace, and people should be outraged with it. And frankly, doctors and consultants, they're not badly off, are they? Have you ever known a poor doctor? Ever known a poor consultant? Yes, we pay for their brains, and that is important. But they get a great pension, they get great sickness entitlement, something that you would not see in the private sector.
Well, no, and we end up... Look, I do have support for nurses. I did get very, very agitated about nurses going on strike when it was things like cancer wards with children in it or intensive care and stuff like that. And I just thought, look, I'm sorry, I understand that you want more money, but I did think that was bang out of order. I think just morally. So that, that was my view on it. I got a bit of stick for that at the time, but that's where I'm at with it. OK, I think that's just my view. I'm not really going to apologise anymore for that. But when I look at the people who are towards the top end of the NHS as well, so these aren't the people who are at the coalface. These aren't the quotes-unquote angels who are at the bedside or intubating someone or slapping a defibrillator onto a bloke's chest as he has a cardiac arrest. A lot of these people are completely faceless. A lot of them have these ridiculous jobs, whether it's the head of diversity or whatever the heck it is. They're on six-figure salaries and the rest. And I just think, these people, they're classed as NHS workers. They're not angels.
No, we need to get rid of a lot of these bureaucrats. Listen, I used to work amongst them years ago, and I'll tell you what, they used to arrange a meeting to have another meeting, to have another meeting, then write a report on the meeting, to have another meeting. It was absolute waffle on steroids, if that's the right phrase, and the money should be pumped into the medical areas of the NHS. Absolutely. But I'm sorry, when it comes to those medical personnel as well, not all of them are angels. Many do, like I said at the top of this discussion, many do have a bad attitude. Many do need an empathy course. Many are obnoxious, and they need to realise, actually, who pays their salary.
Well, that's an interesting point.
You, the public.
It's an interesting point because the NHS medical negligence bill, and this is for NHS England, and I've got the stats here, which actually is quite staggering. £128.2 billion is set to be the amount which will be needed to settle NHS England's negligence claims. That's a 52% year-on-year increase. A lot of that is in the maternity sector as well, which is particularly devastating, I think, when we assume what the consequences there must have been. And,
awful.
When you look at it like that and you think, well, actually, hang on a minute, is everyone who works in the NHS a hero?
They're not a hero. No, not at all. Many make mistakes. We all know that. We've seen the press reports on it as well. But I do come back to, as well, this issue around productivity and conduct of NHS personnel. When I'm talking about conduct, I'm talking about attitude, the ability to help people, the ability to talk to people in a courteous manner, the ability to actually find a solution for the person you're dealing with. And I'm sorry, whilst many do that really well in the NHS, we have, in my opinion, a real bulk of people that are absolutely useless. I would not pay them in washers.
Steve, thank you very much. It's an insightful...
Hang on, I want to tell you something. By the way, Patrick Christie, have you been nibbling on a chocolate cake?
What was that? I wonder what you said there. What was that? I've eaten the NHS's birthday cake, Steve. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, listen. I just want to give you a little warning because we don't want you becoming a wobbly backsider again.
I know.
Right? So
I know.
Just be careful because you're looking very, very gorgeous at the moment. Very, 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 well, I won't say it at this time of the day, but you're looking great. So just watch what you're putting in your mouth.
I will, Steve. I've already decided I'm not going to be anything else for the rest of the day, and I'll do a few press-ups and sit-ups when I get home. But thank you very, very much. Steve Miller there, not looking too bad yourself. TV personality, friend of the show, friend of the channel. Good lad. Right, OK. Look, here's controversial stuff. But I thought we've spoken a lot about, some of the good stuff the NHS does, a lot of the good stuff the NHS does. I just think it's a bit much to have a 75th birthday party, including a church ceremony today, that sees our Prime Minister, potentially the future Prime Minister, the current leader of the opposition, giving out a church reading. You've got someone who delivered the first vaccine outside of a clinical trial, carrying the George Cross through Westminster Abbey. The Archbishop of Canterbury's there. It is a little bit much when you think about the idea that it probably does need radical reform, and that radical reform, by the way, may well bring with it increased pay for a lot of the members of staff in there, which I think we can agree is needed for the most part in a lot of areas of the NHS. And when you bracket it up as some kind of religious ceremony, it does make it seem perfect and untouchable, doesn't it? And that, I think, is the opposite of what we need. Steve made a good point there. If the NHS really is the envy of the world, then why is nobody else copying our system? More on this on our website, though, gbnews.com, the fastest growing national news site in the country.